One more about yesterday. We noticed, starting at the end of the campaign, and then into the transition, and here at the White House, anytime that the president has an event where he is given a list of reporters to call on, Fox is the only member of the 5-network TV pool that has never been on the list in front of the president. And I'm just curious if that is an official administration policy.
We're here having a conversation, aren't we?
Yes, but
and do I take questions from you every time you come to the briefing room?
Yes, but
has the president taken questions from you since you came in? He came into office?
Unfortunately,
yes or no?
Only when I have shouted after he goes through his whole list. And the president has been very generous with his time with Fox. I'm just curious about this list that he has given. So the only member of the 5-network pool never on it, dating back to when he resumed in-person events in Wilmington during the end of the campaign.
Well, I would say that I'm always happy to have this conversation with you, even about your awesome socks you're having on today, you wearing today, and have a conversation with you, even when we disagree. The president's taken your questions, and I'm looking forward to doing Fox News Sunday this Sunday for the 3rd time in the last few months. I think we got to move on because we got limited time. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, just gonna throw this out there. When you use your question at the press briefing to complain that you didn't get to ask a question at yesterday's press briefing, you're not exactly making a great case as to why you should be called on to ask questions. Instead of whining that you didn't get to ask a question, maybe you should try to prove why you deserve a question. That's not exactly what's happening here. This is Fox News' Peter Doocy doing his level best to make the whole Joe Biden didn't call on Fox a thing. In fact, the coverage on Fox and from Doocy himself has continued to center around this very issue since the moment the press conference ended.
This list started getting used where the president, when they would host an event, usually in Wilmington, Delaware, would go through either a staffer off to the side or the president would have a list, usually of about 5 people, and those are the ones that he would call on. Fox wound up getting a lot of sound bites from the president because when he was done with that list, he would linger around to see what I was going to shout about. That's great, but yesterday, again, is one of these situations where somebody on the staff, or a lot of people on the staff, come up with a list, they give it to him, and if he just decides to stick to the list, then we are left out.
They don't want to talk about the recovery, or COVID, or gun violence, or voter suppression bills. They're only interested in talking about their own perceived victimhood. Whereas normal journalists would never want to be the story, Fox News is doing wall-to-wall coverage on why they themselves are the only story. But sure, very real news network. In fact, here's Hannity complaining about it as well.
Of course, Joe didn't take any questions from our own Peter Doocy. Not a shock there. Naturally, none of the other reporters even dared to ask about the wind knocking Joe Biden down 3 times, climbing up Air Force One, the stairs there. The wind knocked him over. Nobody asked him about his struggles cognitively. Or the bizarre scandal swirling around zero-experience Hunter Biden.
Here's the thing, Sean Hannity complaining that Fox didn't get to ask a question about the wind knocking Joe Biden down or why he's in cognitive decline is exactly why Fox News didn't get to ask a question. I mean, Hannity quite literally made the perfect case to not call on Fox News. They are not a real news network. They are right-wing propaganda perpetuating whatever BS culture war scandals they can cook up to distract from the actual issues facing this country. The idea that the White House would ever call on Fox, knowing, because Hannity broadcast it, that they'd be asking about cognitive decline is so asinine that, well, that it's actually very fitting for Fox News. And bear in mind, this scandal comes after the other very real scandals on Fox, like how Joe Biden went too long without holding a press conference, and now that Joe Biden's only had 1 press conference. Or, and I hope you're sitting down for this, that he had a cheat sheet that he used to recall some figures. Yes, a cheat sheet. The greatest scandal that the world's seen since Barack Obama wore a tan suit.
See presidents do when they step up to deliver a news conference. Why did he need a bullet point that said China spends 3 times more on infrastructure than the United States?
Clearly what you're seeing there, he's looking down the entire time and reading. Then there are photographs that actually took a picture of his notes. There it is. He's reading word for word from his bullet points there. I actually went back and watched and read along, and it was verbatim on a script. Why does the president of the United States need a notepad to discuss North Korea?
at times reading directly from his note cards. Now, I've been doing radio since 1987, here on the Fox News channel since 1996. Never in my lifetime have I ever seen anything like this before.
Yes, never in his lifetime has he seen anything like this before. Truly disqualifying. A president reading notes, unprecedented in US history. Anyway, here's this completely unrelated clip that I'm dropping here for no reason in particular.
I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky, President Zelensky, to do the right thing.
Weird, I guess Hannity missed the last 4 years. Although, I guess it's difficult to hear things when your head is shoved so far up Trump's ass. As for using notes, that clip wasn't the only instance where Trump did so. He also used them here, and here, and here. That last one is from a discussion with parents of gun violence victims. You might notice that the last bullet point says, "I hear you." Donald Trump needed to write himself a note to tell grieving parents that he hears them because he was otherwise too sociopathic to have remembered that. But sure, Biden's disqualified because he wanted to be able to cite accurate statistics. Got it. Let's be honest, Biden should be applauded for consulting notes that the figures and statistics that he shares are accurate. I know that that's a foreign concept for outlets like Fox News, but I tend to think that it might be a pretty welcome change after the last guy decided that he wouldn't consult any notes or experts or reality, and we got such gems as injecting disinfectant and hydroxychloroquine. Call me old-fashioned, but maybe having a president spout utter nonsense because he likes the sound of his own voice shouldn't be the gold standard. The fact is that Fox News isn't entitled to a single question, and the fact that Jen Psaki and even Biden himself humor that network anyway, 99% of the time, is arguably helping validate a network that traffics in disinformation. Remember, this is a network that cast doubt on the election results 800 times in a 2-week period, a campaign that ultimately led to an insurrection at the US Capitol. Fox News today was sued for $1.6 billion from Dominion Voting Systems for its defamatory comments and trying to explain away Trump's loss. I could go on, but the point is that Fox is not real news and it shouldn't be treated as real news. So instead of whining and throwing days-long temper tantrums that they didn't get to ask questions that they then admitted would probably be focused on cognitive decline or Joe Biden tripping on stairs or whatever other earth-shattering, totally definitely legitimate news that Fox cooks up, the onus should be on Fox to earn a question, something they seem to have no intention of doing. But the last thing we should be doing in this country, especially after the events that transpired recently, is rewarding a network that traffics almost exclusively in disinformation. To see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell. And please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I not only break down the biggest stories of the week, but I also interview major players in the world of politics, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Jamie Raskin, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.